Now that commission-free trading is the norm, it's time to rethink how we define value. Value is more than a price tag. It's the confidence of knowing you have a team of traders on standby to answer any question. It's thinkorswim's charting and analysis tools, and it's a personalized education to fine-tune your skills. Value is becoming smarter with every commission-free online equity trade. Discover true value with TD Ameritrade, where smart investors get smarter.
There once was a dad who set out on a great quest to find the perfect Coke flavors at his family's request. So he went into a local store and grabbed the Coke Cherry Vanilla, Coke Cherry, and more. At dinner, they sipped Coke flavors and rejoiced, for everyone made their own delicious choice.
Coca-Cola flavors. Unbelievably delicious.
With so many delicious Coca-Cola flavors and Coca-Cola Zero Sugar flavors options to choose from, you'll have to taste them all. Pick some up at El Super today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. We have talked about many players on the Epstein stage as we have worked our way through this case. But there are not many people who were more involved and played a bigger role in facilitating all of this than Darren Indyke and Richard Kahn, the two men who ended up being Jeffrey Epstein's executors. Today's article from the Daily Beast is an overview of who the two men are, what they are about, and just exactly what their role was within Jeffrey Epstein's criminal enterprise. And again, I know I was gushing about the Daily Beast recently, but here they are again doing that good work. Not many people have picked up the baton and went after Indyke and Kahn, but they should have. These are two men that played a very intricate part in what Jeffrey Epstein was doing for decades. And the fact that they ended up as executors of the estate is disgusting at best. These two dudes should be worried about not going to prison for the rest of their lives for being accomplices to Jeffrey Epstein and helping facilitate his crimes. But yet, here they are in charge of the fortune that is supposed to be dispersed to these same survivors who they took part in abusing the first time. Maybe not the physical abuse, right? I've never heard that they were actually partaking in the sex trafficking portion, but they most assuredly facilitated this. They most assuredly helped it go on for years and years and years. And today, Kate Bricklet and the Daily Beast is letting them have it. So this is, like I said, this is a pretty long article, so I won't waste any more time with my opening monologue here, and we'll jump right in. This article is from the Daily Beast. The author is Kate Bricklet, and the researcher on the project was William Brederman. Headline: Jeffrey Epstein's right-hand mystery men, the lawyer and the accountant. One of the men was described by a source as Epstein's confidant and aide for decades. The other was his longtime accountant. Both could soon be questioned. And we know that Indyke wiggled off the hook as far as the deposition goes that he was supposed to give on Wednesday. Now, one thing I will say for Indyke and Kahn is these guys know the game as well. They're hip to the game, they understand the loopholes, and they know that if they can avoid sitting down under oath and talking about what occurred while they were in Jeffrey Epstein's employ, then they have a much better chance at denial. So the idea is to never get sat down under oath. And you see that from a lot of these people. They don't want to get sat down. They don't want to be in front of an investigator. They don't want to have their name on one of those sheets. They don't want to deal with that. Because now, anything you say about this case or have said about this case, you could get yourself caught in a nice perjury trap. And Indyke and Kahn understand that probably better than anybody else. The day after Jeffrey Epstein killed himself, allegedly, a man wearing a hoodie and LA Dodgers cap emerged from the dead sex offender's Manhattan mansion. His hat and shades obscured his face as he hauled a hefty blue gift bag out of the massive townhouse where Epstein abused scores of underage girls for years. I mean, right away, you're left questioning, what is this guy doing at Jeffrey Epstein's house the day after, right? And then he walks out with a blue gift bag. What was in that gift bag? What was so important that he had to go to Jeffrey Epstein's house the day after he died and get that bag? Why would Richard Kahn need to do that? The accountant. A photographer captured the scene that day in August 2019, and the pictures were published by the Daily Mail, which identified the mystery man as Epstein's longtime accountant and co-executor of his $634 million estate, 47-year-old Richard Kahn. The bag he was carrying, a source with close ties to Kahn said, contained Epstein's funeral clothes. What? So his accountant goes to get the funeral clothes? That's a little odd, right? Why wouldn't his brother go get the funeral clothes, or one of the assistants? The accountant goes, huh? I'm sure that's all that was in that bag was funeral clothes. Look, I don't know for sure what was in that bag, right? I wasn't there. I didn't take a look at the bag myself. But chances are that bag contained a lot more than funeral clothes, folks. All right, I'm not stupid. I'm not naive. I might be a moron at times, but come on. Why would the accountant go to get his funeral clothes? Little is known about Kahn outside his work for Epstein, or about his co-executor, 55-year-old Darren Indyke, who served as Epstein's personal attorney for more than 2 decades and was apparently so close to Epstein that the money manager paid for fertility treatments for Indyke and his wife. Neither man has a public social media account, and both shun press interviews. And you see that a lot with these kind of people, right? They don't have a social media imprint, or footprint, I should say. And anytime people don't have a social media footprint, it rings alarm bells in my head. Most people have social media of some kind, a Twitter, a Facebook, Instagram, something. Even old people, all right? These people like this, they don't have this sort of thing because they don't want to be tracked down. They don't want to answer questions, and they don't want a trail of information leading back to them. So they go the route of no social footprint, but it automatically rings alarm bells in my head. You know who else didn't have an internet footprint? Stephen Paddock, the guy that opened fire in Las Vegas on October 1st. Those are the kind of people that really terrify me these days. But both could soon be questioned as part of a lawsuit filed by Jane Doe, who alleges she was 14 when Epstein and his former girlfriend, co-conspirator, fellow child abuser, general all-around scumbag, British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell began to groom and sexually abuse her in 1994. Doe is suing Indyke and Kahn in their capacity as co-executors and Maxwell individually. And I think we're going to see a lot more of this, right? I think we're going to see Darren Indyke and Richard Kahn's names brought up more in these lawsuits because it's very apparent that they played a critical and crucial role in facilitating Jeffrey Epstein's crimes for all of these years. And the survivors have talked about it. People in the know have talked about it. The only people who are late to the party once again is the legacy media. So, again, a tip of the hat to the Daily Beast and especially Kate. They take on these stories that are, pretty controversial, right? Coming out and talking about Alexander de Rossi, that's a big step. You would never see the New York Times doing that, or the Post, even though it's all factual, it's all real, it's all the truth. They don't want to give ammunition to the so-called quote-unquote other side. And that's how you know who you're dealing with. If somebody is afraid to tell the truth to you because it might affect a politician, then that person is not somebody you should trust. I'm at the point in my life right now where anything any politician says, I have to check at least 3 times to make sure it's the truth, because all they do is lie to us at this point. So if anyone's rallying around one side or the other, acting like that side cares about the people or that they're going to do the best job possible for the citizens, you're not really paying attention and you're being gaslit. Maxwell, who is in federal prison in Brooklyn awaiting trial for her alleged role in Epstein's teen sex ring, could also sit for a deposition in Doe's lawsuit. Oh boy, to be a roach in the rushes, huh? Imagine being a fly on the wall. Imagine being in that room and hearing the deposition from Maxwell. I'll tell you. And I think that she should have to sit for the deposition, right? She should have to do whatever it takes to make sure that justice is served. Her days of doing what she wants, Ghislaine Maxwell's days of doing what she wants, are over. She is now a ward of the state, and she will do as directed. Last week, Doe's attorney wrote the federal judge overseeing the case and indicated Indyke would be deposed in both his personal capacity and as a co-executor of the Epstein estate, and would offer extremely relevant testimony relating to her claims. For sure. Look, Darren Indyke had a deep knowledge of what was going on with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, again, I'm not going to sit here and say to you, Darren Indyke was involved in abusing anybody. I don't know that, right? And nobody has come forward saying that. But what I will say is this. You can't facilitate crimes like this for people. What, because you're the money man in the mafia, you don't go to prison? What, because you're the guy that handles the in-house law duties for the cartel, you don't go to prison? The hell you don't. And Darren Indyke is one of these guys, in my opinion, that was a lot more than just an in-house lawyer. Indeed, we have reason to believe he has first-hand knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein's relationship with plaintiff while she was a minor, and even acted on Jeffrey Epstein's behalf to communicate with plaintiff on several occasions. The lawyer Robert Glassman wrote to U.S. District Judge Deborah Freeman, responding to the estate's push to delay the under oath grilling. And this is a big deal, right? He's saying that Indyke had first-hand knowledge of the abuse and did nothing with it. He's saying that Indyke knew this little girl was being abused by Jeffrey Epstein and just continued on with his regular life like nothing was wrong. And as far as Judge Deborah Freeman, I am not a fan. I do not trust her as far as we can throw her, and I really don't trust her motivations at this point. Doe also plans to depose Kahn. In an email thread attached to this letter, Glassman told the lawyer for Epstein's estate, with respect to Mr. Kahn testifying in his personal capacity, we would like to know to what extent he knew about Mr. Epstein and Miss Maxwell's criminal enterprise. We would like to know if Mr. Epstein had ever told him that he sexually abused and raped my client and other minor victims. And again, very important, right? The verbiage matters here. The words matter here. And the fact that the lawyers are calling it a criminal enterprise as well is a big deal. Everybody knows that this is a criminal effing conspiracy, okay? Everybody understands that there were plenty of moving parts here. And anybody who's been paying attention also understands that this should be a RICO case yesterday. How are you going to slap R. Kelly with a RICO case, but not these people? It defies logic. And in fact, we're going to read a couple of articles about the R. Kelly case at some point to give you a bit of an idea of how the RICO law has been used in his case, but for some reason is being ignored here, at least as of now. I trust you would agree that even if Mr. Kahn started working for Mr. Epstein after Mr. Epstein stopped abusing my client, that doesn't mean Mr. Kahn wouldn't or doesn't know anything about it, right? Glassman added. And that's right. He could have heard something about it. They could have talked about it. Look, that's why we have depositions. That's why we have this ability in the country to bring people in and get to the bottom of things. The estate asked that the judge postpone Kahn and Indyke's depositions, not only because they've yet to provide discovery materials requested by Doe, but also because Maxwell is requesting a stay in the case pending her criminal trial. And remember, again, I have to point it out, when Maxwell made her statements in The Sun about Epstein paying for her defense, etc., the stuff about the hacked emails, the stuff about the estate, it was all calculated. And they were all warning shots to Indyke and Kahn. So I highly doubt that Indyke and Kahn's legal team is not working behind the scenes with Maxwell's legal team to try and get the brakes put on all of this. Again, I don't have direct evidence of that. Nobody's talked about it in the media. Nobody said that to me, but it would make sense. Last week, the judge put the depositions on hold until the court resolves Maxwell's request and directed Doe's legal team to find a new deposition date for Indyke in September should Maxwell's motion be denied. I think it's very crucial that Indyke sits down for this deposition in September. He's run long enough, he's been able to avoid this long enough, and it's time that he sits down and answers some hard questions about his relationship with his boss and friend, Jeffrey Epstein. Doe isn't the only survivor who tried to get sworn testimony from Indyke. Survivors in other lawsuits, including a case brought by Annie Farmer, were scheduled to depose him, but their participation in a victims' compensation fund put their cases on hold. And again, this is playing right into Indyke's hands, right? Indyke does not want to sit down for a deposition. That's why I'm so happy that Glassman is going so hard after the deposition. Because we need to get this guy on wax, right? Let's get him down on the record. Let's hear what he has to say. And then let the investigators do their work. One of the ironies is that as an Epstein executor, by agreeing to set up this claims process, he may succeed in insulating himself from discovery. One source familiar with the survivors' litigation told the Daily Beast. The source said Indyke was plucked out of obscurity by Epstein and described him as an in-house counsel to Epstein's enterprise. 100%. How long have I been telling you guys that? Right? Look, all you have to do is pay a little bit of attention to what's going on. What are we, 640 articles deep at this point? We have covered just about everything there is to cover when it comes to this case. And Darren Indyke was built by Jeffrey Epstein. He's been working for Jeffrey Epstein since forever, and he was Jeffrey Epstein's in-house counsel. He was there so Jeffrey Epstein can run all of the legal problems off of him. Any questions, how do we find this loophole? How do we navigate that loophole? And then if shit got too serious, then of course you bring in the big gun trial attorneys like Dershowitz, etc. But your day-to-day duties, your day-to-day mundane business activities, well, those are handled by your in-house counsel. And Darren Indyke was that in-house counsel for decades. He was involved in virtually all of the legal work Epstein had, the source added. He's probably the person with the most knowledge about Epstein's money, business relationships, assets, and legal affairs. Again, all this stuff we've talked about. This guy has his finger on the pulse when it comes to the financials. His name is littered on receipts for shell companies, transactions, you name it. How is he not a target? He's a mystery in part because he's been with Epstein for so long, the source said. He's been Epstein's confidant and aide for decades. If he had a life outside of Epstein, it was a very private life. Another sycophant, right? Another guy who bought into the Epstein narrative hook, line, and sinker. Epstein was like a demigod to Indyke, I bet. Pulled Indyke from obscurity, gave him this fancy job as his in-house counsel, access to a bunch of young models if he wanted. Boy, the world was great for Indyke, wasn't it? Meanwhile, he was helping facilitate this monster's horrible decades-long run of crimes. And yet, somehow he doesn't even get a deposition? Indyke and his criminal defense lawyer, Mark Agnifilo, hired amid the government's ongoing probe of Epstein and his companies, did not return messages left by the Daily Beast. His relatives also declined to comment. The father of two worked as Epstein's personal attorney since the 1990s, serving as an officer for the financier, pedophiles, charities, handling feuds with unpaid contractors, and representing the businesses of women in Epstein's circle. In 2012, he signed corporation paperwork for the design business of Sarah Kellen, an alleged co-conspirator of Epstein, whom Palm Beach cops were ready to charge in their 2006 probe. Kellen was named accomplice in Epstein's 2008 plea deal, which shielded her from prosecution. So again, look, it wasn't like Indyke is some, just guy that happened to get caught up in this. He was around after Epstein was convicted, before Epstein was convicted, and helped facilitate companies for people such as Sarah Kellen Vickers. This is a man who has all the secrets. This is a man who needs to be arrested. As the Daily Beast has previously revealed, Indyke also represented the woman's empowerment business of Lana Pozadaiva, a Russian model in Epstein's orbit. In 2018, Indyke filed trademark paperwork and registered the website for Pozadaiva's business, We Talks. Records show that weeks after Epstein's suicide, Pozadaiva swapped Indyke for another lawyer. Again, it's all about Epstein, right? Epstein facilitated all of that. Epstein set Indyke up with her, obviously, and once Epstein was out of the picture, well, she decided to hop on to another lawyer because her relationship with Indyke probably wasn't that tight. The tie that binded was Epstein, obviously. But Indyke has his fingers in many pies, and all of them smell like Jeffrey Epstein. Indyke's name is also on a corporation filing for the anonymous company that owned Maxwell's East 65th Street townhouse. In 2000, Epstein's friend, Lynn Forrester, sold the residence to the LLC for $4.95 million, according to reports. Now, remember, Lynn Forrester is now a Rothschild. That family is another family full of snakes and serpents, huh? He served as a trustee of Maxwell's Max Foundation from 2001 to 2010, until he was replaced by Dana Burns, a woman pictured in society photos with Epstein, and who also worked for Maxwell's ocean nonprofit, the Terra Mar Project. Again, the Terra Mar Project was just another front company, in my opinion. Just another way for them to wash their money and for them to grift. It is absolutely mind-boggling that they were able to operate the way they were for so long. Indyke was not only involved with Jeffrey Epstein, convicted sex offender, but now also has his name all over Maxwell's shit as well. Accused sex offender, child abuser. But you mean to tell me Indyke is clean? Stop it. Meanwhile, Indyke was listed as secretary of the Wexner Foundation, a nonprofit founded by Epstein's only known clients, ex-Victoria's Secret mogul Leslie Wexner and his wife Abigail, in SEC filings from 1998 to 2001. The nonprofit's tax forms also listed Indyke as secretary through 2006. 2 years later, Abigail Wexner gave Indyke power of attorney over her condominium at 15 Central Park West, property records show. So, not only was Jeffrey Epstein dicking around with Wexner's money, well, they thought it would be a good idea to have Indyke involved as well. Now remember, we're talking about Leslie Wexner, head of L Brands, maestro of Victoria's Secret. What does he and his wife need Darren Indyke to have power of attorney over their condominium for? Why do they need Darren Indyke as the secretary of the Wexner Foundation? Can anybody explain that to me? What has Indyke done in his life, or up to that point in his life, to garner such a high place at the table. Friends from high school and throughout Indyke's life were surprised to see his name connected to Epstein in the press after the hedge funder died. Indyke grew up in a middle-class family in Glen Cove, a small city on the north shore of Long Island. Childhood pals told the Daily Beast he was a sweet, normal guy who was actively involved with theater from a young age through high school. Yeah, okay, great. In high school, he was a normal cat. No doubt about it. Great. Perfect. What happens? Money, folks. How many times do we talk about it? Greed. Greed, greed, greed. In his 1982 senior yearbook, Indyke wrote that in 20 years he would be performing his first case for the Supreme Court, quoting Al Pacino, Yahoo Finance reported. Little did he know that what he really meant was in 2022 he'd be in court defending himself. He graduated from Colgate College in 1986 and Cornell Law School 5 years later. One former friend who grew up on his block said, even when he was in high school, he knew he was going to law school. He was driven. Everything he did was towards becoming an attorney. It was something his parents wanted, the friend added. When the acquaintance got in trouble for selling ice cream at Jones Beach in the early 80s, he panicked and told an officer his name was something like Darren Indyke and gave an address that was slightly off. Somehow, the pal told the Daily Beast officials discovered the correct spelling and address for Indyke and appeared at his doorstep over the illegal vending. His father, Bernie, was furious, the friend said, adding that he marched over to my house and confronted my father. I got into all kinds of trouble. The point was that Indyke needed an unblemished record because he wanted to go to law school, and something like this could have hurt him in some way, his chances going to a top law school. All right, so I don't know about you folks, but I can't even imagine living a childhood where the most trouble you're going to get is for selling illegal ice cream at the beach. I grew up in the inner city, and let me tell you what, there was a lot more going on where I grew up than selling illegal ice cream. And that's why I say these people weren't built for this shit. Even someone like this Indyke cat. What, you think he gets under the thumb of an investigator? He gets under the thumb of an interrogator? He's going to be quiet? He's going to shut down and not rat anybody out? Please. Please. I think I apologized to him, for sure, the friend said, but it was really his father who was most upset. After law school, Indyke did a 4-year stint with Gold & Wachtel, a now-defunct boutique law firm, and represented several clients in copyright lawsuits. Gold & Wachtel represented Epstein at least as far back as 1988. Firm principal William Wachtel declined to discuss that, but said he hired Indyke as a favor to the younger man's father, Bernard Indyke, whom he described as a mailroom employee at a financial company that had retained Gold & Wachtel. So a mailroom employee has enough pull to get this lawyer, William Wachtel, to hire his son? Must be one hell of a mail sorter, folks. Again, there's more that's going on here. That needs a deeper look. All of these ties most certainly need a deeper look. Court records indicate Indyke's father was in fact a manager and member of the board at Jackie Fine Arts, a Gold & Wachtel client that sold low-value art reproduction rights to the rich at high prices as a calculated tax dodge. Well, there you go. Of course, it was a little bit more than that. He wasn't just a member of the mailroom. He was a manager and a member of the board at Jackie Fine Arts. So, of course, it looked a little funny, that last paragraph, right? Why would this big-time lawyer show up in a mailroom and give somebody's son a job? That does not make sense. This, on the other hand, makes a lot more sense. Jackie Fine Arts, another calculated tax dodge, another way for them to launder money. That strikes closer to home for me. Efforts to reach the founder of the company, Herman Feinsod, once held as the king of tax shelters, were unsuccessful. Look, a lot of this that we talk about here, folks, is based on the financials. These guys are up to their ears in financial irregularities and financial crimes. It is apparent. You find someone successful and hitch your wagon to them, a childhood friend of Indyke's, who last saw him when they were in their 20s, told the Daily Beast. People fall into these situations and they can't extricate themselves. That's the benefit of the doubt I would give him. Nope, sorry, no benefit of the doubt from somebody who hasn't seen him since they were in their 20s. I'm sorry, I can't give him that benefit of the doubt. He didn't fall into this. If anything, it was his greed that got him caught up in this. And again, that is his fault. Indyke perhaps felt indebted to Epstein for his largesse. As Indyke wrote in a glowing biography of his boss, prepared for Florida prosecutors, Epstein paid for prohibitively expensive in vitro fertilization cycles for him and his wife. Okay, so on the face of that, that's cool, right? I know if I had a bunch of money and I had a friend who was having problems getting his wife pregnant and they needed some in vitro fertilization cycles, I would be more than happy to help them out. Zero doubt about it. Whatever my friends needed, I would be there if I had this kind of money. No strings attached. But do you think that Jeffrey Epstein ever did anything without strings attached? Of course he didn't. But this wasn't a situation where Indyke was indebted to him because of that. Indyke worked hand in hand, knowingly, with Jeffrey Epstein as Jeffrey Epstein went on a decades-long run of a sex trafficking operation. That is who Indyke is. Shortly after I began working for Jeffrey, I experienced a personal and unexpected tragedy. After 5 years of marriage, my wife and I learned that I was infertile and we could not have children in the traditional manner, Indyke wrote in his bio, first reported by the Palm Beach Post. I meekly approached Jeffrey and asked him if it would be possible to drop my wife and me from the company's medical policy in exchange for a different one or cash payment, Indyke continued. Puzzled by my request, Jeffrey naturally asked why. When I told him, he was visibly affected, and without even a moment's consideration, he told me to go for treatment and send him the bills. Having been with Jeffrey only a few months, I was astounded by his generosity and hurried to my desk to call my wife to share the amazing news. Of course, that's what Jeffrey Epstein would do for these people, right? That was all part of their package. That was part of your silence. Indyke claimed Epstein paid for 5 cycles of in vitro and that Maxwell even offered to look into adoption for his family. Aw, isn't that cute? I guess that settles it too. I mean, Epstein offered to pay for the in vitro, and Maxwell offered to look for adoption, so they're obviously good people, and we should just forget everything else they have done. At the unsuccessful completion of our 4th cycle and a failed adoption attempt, my wife and I were at the end of our rope and did not want to continue, Indyke declared. Without Jeffrey's support and stubborn daily encouragement, we would not have. He even recruited his then-girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, to meet with us to offer assistance with local adoption and oversee adoption procedures and to encourage us to try again. That shit's terrifying on its face. All right? Most people read that and they think, oh yeah, it's about adoption. I read that and say to myself, how does Ghislaine Maxwell know all the ins and outs of this sort of shit? How many kids were adopted by Ghislaine or with Ghislaine's help for other people? Can we look into that? Is anybody digging into that? I think that's a story that might have legs there for all you investigative journalists out there. The fact that she knows all the ins and outs of this adoption is terrifying to me, folks, okay? This is not a lady that should be adopting kids or advising anybody on the steps that need to be taken to do so. Thankfully, after our 5th cycle, my wife and I were blessed with twin daughters. Although Jeffrey was adamant that we owed him nothing, Jeffrey honored us by agreeing to be the godfather of our children. How many times was Jeffrey Epstein is the godfather of a lot of children, isn't he? Now I could understand if his name was Gotti, all right, or Casso, or Gambino, but this guy sure is a godfather to a lot of children, which on its face is absolutely disgusting, by the way. In the past decade, Indyke and his wife have owned 2 different properties in Boca Raton, Florida, one of which they still own, having acquired it for $3.1 million without a mortgage in 2015. Another, bought in 2014 and sold 4 years after, sat in the exclusive enclave of Boca Grove Plantation. It required the pair to shell out at least $70,000 beyond the $460,000 purchase price for a social equity membership in the Boca Grove Golf and Tennis Club. Oh, I'm sure that was fun. Stan, do you have my tea and crumpets? We're going to the Boca Raton Grove Golf and Tennis Club to meet Buffy and Biff. Give me an absolute break. 70 grand to go noodle around with a bunch of moronic, archaic ass so-called elite society members? No thanks. I'll take that 70 grand and go on a fantastic vacation. All the while, they maintained a residence in Livingston, New Jersey, which they purchased through an LLC for $1.75 million in 2003. In his recent book, Relentless Pursuit, longtime survivor's lawyer Brad Edwards described Indyke as Epstein's fixer, who had attended important hearings as well as my depositions of Epstein over the years. Yeah, hell yeah, of course he did, because he was Epstein's numero uno, number one, top hitter, big dog. I'm the lawyer. I'm the House representative. It all comes through me. That was Indyke's role. That's what he did. He acted as Jeffrey Epstein's Tom Hagen, folks. When Edwards sat for a 2017 deposition with his years-long court battle with Epstein, Indyke was there to take notes. Darren Indyke, who was a staple at every Epstein event, was situated in his normal spot at the far end of the table in order to monitor and report back to Epstein everything that happened, Edwards wrote. He wasn't a litigator. He was more like a fixer. Edwards noted at another point, Indyke had one client, Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, is the Tom Hagen comparison perfect or what, folks? Now, obviously, Indyke is nowhere near as cool as Tom Hagen was, right? Tom Hagen was the man. But I'm talking about their function, right? Edwards represents a client referred to as Caitlin Doe, who alleges in a lawsuit that Epstein forced her to marry one of his non-citizen female recruiters, nuptials arranged, she says, through Epstein's longtime New York attorney. That would be Darren Indyke. All right? So now Darren Indyke has his name all over Lord knows what documents, but he also facilitated the marriage of a girl who was a non-citizen, probably trafficked, to one of his female recruiters. They organized that marriage of a probably sex-trafficked girl, with Indyke acting as the facilitator. How is he not arrested? How is he not indicted? The ceremony included not only signing the necessary legal paperwork prepared by the attorney, but also posing for photographs to give the appearance that the marriage was legitimate, the complaint states. Whether Indyke was this attorney hasn't been publicly confirmed. Edwards could not be reached for comment. It's obviously Indyke. I mean, look, I don't have that for sure 100%, but we're talking about Epstein's in-house lawyer, the man that Epstein trusts the most, and it's rather obvious that it was Indyke who was the one involved here. Kahn is a lesser-known figure in Epstein's world, and his name is hardly mentioned in litigation related to the sex offender survivors. There was no public images of the accountant until the Daily Mail's photo of him transporting the gift bag in August 2019, along with snapshots of him leaving Epstein's home in February 2019, following a 2-hour visit. An international man of mystery. No public photos of this guy? I mean, really? Days after the Mail published the images, an attorney for one survivor wrote to Kahn's lawyers demanding materials to be preserved. Is it true that Mr. Kahn entered Mr. Epstein's townhouse and removed documents, the lawyers wrote? Before requesting a list of documents and or materials Mr. Kahn removed from Mr. Epstein's townhouse that day and on any other occasion after Mr. Epstein's death. Well, that's a pretty fair request, right? What are you doing in his house? Why is anybody in this man's house? Why doesn't it have some of that yellow, ribbon over it, calling it a crime scene? Shouldn't it be a crime scene? I mean, shouldn't you preserve a crime scene? Isn't that how this all works? Counsel for the Epstein estate dismissed the mail report and told the survivors team via email, "Our clients take their preservation obligations seriously." They do, huh? They do? They haven't taken anything seriously in this whole case, but now they take the preservation part seriously? Okay. A person with knowledge told the Daily Beast that the bag contained funeral attire and that Kahn was doing his obligation as an executor, which is to attend to the burial details. Yeah, that's fine. Attend to the burial details. But let's get real, okay? Somebody like Kahn isn't going to get an outfit for Jeffrey Epstein's funeral. They have assistants. They have underlings. They have coffee getters. So don't tell me he showed up there to get an outfit. Ridiculous. The source said Kahn has never socialized with Epstein and wasn't aware of Epstein's alleged abuse. Kahn first met Epstein when he began working for him in 2005 out of a Madison Avenue office he shared with Indyke. An accountant named Bella Klein and Epstein's personal assistant and alleged co-conspirator Leslie Groff also routinely worked in the New York office. That's nice, huh? What a group of scoundrels. Richard worked out of the office, the source added. Did Epstein appear at those offices? Yes. Did Richard see any of the activities that were the focus of press attention? No. Kahn's name appears throughout records for Epstein's nonprofits and corporations and was mentioned in the 2010 deposition of Epstein's Palm Beach house manager, Janusz Banasiak, who described him as a senior accountant. Would you say that Mr. Kahn is a key employee, like a right-hand man of Mr. Epstein? One survivor's lawyer asked. Banasiak replied in the affirmative. Kahn is listed as treasurer for Epstein's Financial Strategy Group, Ltd., FSG, which filed an application in 2013 to become an international banking entity based in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Indyke was secretary and Epstein president, records show. Okay, so here you go again. His name is on one of these front companies that was involved at the very least in fraud and money laundering, so that itself should earn him an indictment. FSG, which changed its name to Southern Country International, was approved in 2014 to run a bank specializing only in offshore clients. In 2018, Erica Kellerhals, Epstein's tax lawyer based in St. Thomas, told territory officials the bank's operations hadn't yet begun. According to the New York Times, whether the bank actively pursued customers is unclear. But months after Epstein died, the estate transferred more than $12 million to Southern Country's coffers. The bank's year-end value was $499,759. 2 weeks after the transfer, the Times reported, and what happened to the money isn't clear. And there is the big rub, right? Where is this money? Where did it go? Who's involved with it? Who was in charge of it? Who facilitated the transaction? We don't know any of this, but you can rest assured that the prosecutors most certainly do. According to FSG's Articles of Incorporation, Kahn became a certified public accountant in 1995. He graduated from Syracuse University in 1994 and got a master's in taxation from Pace University in 1999. Oh, so he got a master's in theft? That's cool, because we all know taxation is theft. Kahn and his wife, Lisa, purchased a $2.8 million co-op apartment on the Upper East Side in 2008, property records show. And they took out a mortgage on the residence in 2016. The couple also owns a 6-bedroom Hamptons mansion purchased for $1.5 million in 2015. Boy, it sure does pay to work for Jeffrey Epstein, doesn't it? While all of these people were amassing their fortunes, while they were having their houses in the Hamptons right next to Ramona Singers, the survivors were struggling for air. The survivors were battling to be heard. And the survivors were still being abused by the system and people like Indyke and Kahn. How is that even possibly acceptable? Kahn, who declined to comment for this article, has been an executive with Epstein's shadowy nonprofits since at least 2007. That year, Kahn replaced Maxwell as treasurer of the COUQ Foundation and held the role until the charity was dissolved 5 years later. And that, folks, also was a calculated move, in my opinion. They knew that they were going to be facing the legal portion of Jeffrey Epstein's actions, and they wanted to try and shade Maxwell from the fallout. So they moved Kahn in there as a preemptive move because Kahn is an accountant anyway, so they could just use that as their cover and give Maxwell a little bit of shadowy protection in the process. COUQ contributed $46 million in stock and other assets to Wexner's YLK charitable fund in 2008, just before Epstein started his Palm Beach jail sentence. According to one CNBC report, Epstein's nonprofit gave $14 million to YLK in 2007. Before COUQ shut down in November 2012, Epstein created another murky entity called Gratitude America Ltd. All of these places, folks, were laundering money and sheltering laundered money. That's what all of these front companies' purposes were. The charity's tax filings didn't show revenues until 2015, when Kahn replaced Epstein as president of the group and investor Leon Black donated $10 million through an anonymous LLC. The Attorney General of the U.S. Virgin Islands recently issued civil subpoenas to Black over his relationship to Epstein. And we've been discussing that at length, right? Leon Black has a lot to answer for here. Deutsche Bank AG, where Gratitude America had an account, is also under fire over its relationship with Epstein. In July, the bank was fined $150 million for failing to detect millions in suspicious transactions, including payments to Epstein's alleged co-conspirators and more than $800,000 in withdrawals made by Epstein's personal attorney. So that alone right there shows you just a little look at the financial screwery that was occurring on a daily basis within Jeffrey Epstein's criminal enterprise. Similar to Indyke, Kahn made political donations to the same candidates Epstein backed throughout the years. In 2007, Kahn and his wife each made $2,300 donations to the presidential campaign of former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson, a friend of Epstein. Indyke and his wife, Michelle Safer, also donated $2,300 apiece to Richardson that year. One of Epstein's survivors, Virginia Roberts, claims Maxwell directed her to have sex with Richardson. He has denied involvement with Epstein's trafficking scheme. And it just goes to show you, folks, follow the money, right? That's what everyone wants to say. But I warn you, if you're biased in this case and you're worried about upsetting the apple cart and the other side getting ammunition, you might not want to look into it. You might want to stay in your own little echo chamber, because when you take a look at who is donating money in Jeffrey Epstein's name, basically, and who they were donating it to, your jaw will hit the floor. Kahn donated a total of $5,400 to the campaign of Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett of the U.S. Virgin Islands in 2016 and $2,700 in 2018. He shelled out $2,600 to Plaskett in 2014, as did fellow Epstein accountant Bella Klein. After Epstein's July 2019 arrest, Plaskett said she'd returned Epstein's money, though it is unknown whether she planned to return the funds of his associates. And I think that's a good angle that Kate is working here, right? Kate is doing a good job here. It's important to follow this money. It's important to see not only who Epstein donated to, but his confidants. In the itemized receipts for the 2016 and 2018 donations, Kahn's occupation is listed as attorney. He's never been registered, however, as a lawyer in New York State. Boy, folks, that was a pretty good encompassing look at Indyke and Kahn and their role within Jeffrey Epstein's criminal enterprise. And the question remains, why are these two men co-executors of the estate rather than guests of the state? If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. All right, everybody, I will be back later on, and we will pick up where we left off. Enjoy your Sunday, everybody.
You might think President Barack Obama and music icon Bruce Springsteen are unlikely friends, but for more than a decade, the pair has built a relationship around their shared sensibilities and values. Now you can listen to their poignant conversations about fatherhood, race, marriage, music, and the country that's given them both so much. Click the banner to play Renegades, Born in the USA, a Spotify original podcast produced by Higher Ground Audio.
Presented by Dollar Shave Club.
What you doing?
Designing my new 2021 Nissan Kicks Online in the Kicks Color Studio. I give each a special name. This one's electric blue, orange, red, white. I call it the gumball machine. You think it's me?
I feel like you're more of a red velvet guy.
Limitless possibilities. With over 100 million available color combinations and Bose Personal Plus system in the boldly new 2021 Nissan Kicks. Bose is the registered trademark of the Bose Corporation. Color combinations include interior and exterior colors. Customization is an available feature subject to availability at participating Nissan dealers. See dealer for details.